Thank you for joining us today. This is PubMed for Librarians, Customization with My NCBI. My name is Rebecca Brown with the National Network of Libraries of Medicine Training Office. So we're going to be working through many of the features that a My NCBI account offers that can help you streamline your time in PubMed. These are things that you may want to consider showing your patrons to help their searching more efficient as well. So we're going to talk about all the different ways to sign into My NCBI. Then we're going to look at the My NCBI filters that you can add to the right side of your page. These are in addition to the built-in left side filters that appear after you run a search. I'll also show you how to create a custom filter. Then I'm going to demonstrate a rarely discussed feature called shared settings that creates a customized My NCBI experience for users who are not logged in to My NCBI. It's kind of like magic. And then once we're in My NCBI, I'll show you some options you can apply to customize the PubMed interface, and we'll save a search, create an alert, and share a collection. So today we're going to take a see one, do one approach to the exercises. I'm going to demonstrate. You can sit back and relax. You don't have to worry about watching and doing at the same time. And then I'm actually going to give you some time to do those exercises. To start with, here I am at PubMed.gov. I am not logged in, but I'm going to click on in the upper right corner, sign in to NCBI. And let's just review some of the different ways to log in. You know, I know it's not rocket science, but we do hear from people around the country who say they meet resistance from their patrons who don't want to set up another account where they have to remember a username and password, and I completely get that. So there are some other ways that these folks can log in that they may already have at their disposal. If you or your patrons have a Google account, you know, many of us have a Gmail address, you can log in with your own Gmail or Google account information. Also, if you've received funding from NIH, you would have received a login in order to apply for that funding. So I'm sure those folks know that username and password. They've got it somewhere, and they can use that login to connect to PubMed.gov. And then also those same people who received funding from NIH, when they get ready to, well, let me say this, if writing a paper is part of is a product, a deliverable from their grant, then they're going to receive another username and password from NIH where they're going to deposit that paper into PubMed Commons, and they can use that username and password as well. So if you work with people who've received grants or publishing, they've got usernames and passwords already. If none of those situations apply, there's another option here, see more third-party sign-in options. You can click on that link, and there's a whole list of institutions that have streamlined the login process. You see Google's on here. You may find, if you want to scroll through here, find your institution. NASA is on here. There's also that OrcID. So if you or people you work with have an OrcID already, that's a way that they can log in. PayPal is on this list. So what this is that most of us, when we get to work in the morning, we log into our computers. Our institution has provided us with a username and a password, and we use that username and password to log into our network. That's the very same username and password you would be using here with this list of institutions. I work for the University of Utah, for example. I have a username and password that I could use if I wanted to. But if your organization is not on this list, there's a link below the list that says can't find your organization. If you hover over that, there's some instructions on how to start that process. You would have to talk with your network administrator because your network is going to have to do what they call a handshake with the NIH network. So you have to bring some other folks into the picture. But today I am just going to sign in with my own username and password that I've had for years. And you know you're logged in because if you look in the upper right corner, well, it says sign out. So yeah, that's a big hint. And then you also see your username up in the corner. So what I'm going to do now is click on My NCBI in the upper right corner, and it's going to take us to what I call a NCBI landing page. that has a bunch of different portlets or windows. They're referred to in both ways. Let me go through these. I'm going to talk about what we can do here. Yours may be ordered differently than mine because you can move these around. You can grab sort of the title bar, and you'll see that your mouse turns into a little crosshair where you can grab that title and move it wherever you want. Move it back. Well, I want it on top. You can minimize them to clean up the area. You can also delete it, and I'll come back to that in just a moment. Here you can search through PubMed or any of the other databases, and to be honest, I only use this search box during this class. Then I've got collections. We're going to talk about the different ways you can use collections. Whenever you see a gear in PubMed, just like most other places on the internet, it means you've got some options. I've got recent activity here, filters we're going to talk about, saving searches. Notice also at the bottom of all these portlets, there's some sort of option to manage that particular window. And then the very last item on my page here is SciENcv. Now, SciENcv helps users create an online profile that they can share with others. And it's really geared towards people who have received an NIH grant and will be publishing a paper as a result of the grant. However, any PubMed user can create a profile. I've got a couple of profiles here. I have not personally received an NIH grant. I just made those up there. You can either create a profile from scratch, or if the person has received a grant, their profile will actually be automatically pulled into this portlet here. And from here, they can edit it or hide it, make it public, private. In my notes, I have to myself that they can delete it. However, when I went into my Managed SciENcv this morning, I didn't see a way that I could delete my old bio sketch, as they call them. But we do have a link for more information about SciENcv. You know, if you're looking to support authors that you work with, you might want to do a lunch and learn, a 30-minute lunch and learn about SciENcv, NIH bio sketches, things like that. So now I'm going to go ahead and click the X on one of these little windows, as to say you just don't want that one there anymore. And it says, are you sure you want to remove this? It's like, yes, I'm sure. And it tells us here that you can bring it back by using the Customize This Page link at the top of this page. And so they're talking about in the upper right here, customize this page. So we're going to come back there in a moment. So I'm going to say, yes, I'm going to live dangerously. I'm just going to remove that. You get a message that before you have a chance to even read what that message is, it disappears. So knowing that customize this page is the place you really want to go, or reading that little box initially will help you bring that back. So I'm going to click on customize this page. Here's a list of all my windows. I'm going to bring back that NCBI search, click done, and I'm back in business. Okay, let's explore the filter options that you have with MyNCBI. I'm going to show you quite a few things here, but after I'm done, I'm going to give you a chance to add some filters to your own account, things that are of interest to you. But first, why would you want to use MyNCBI filters, the ones that appear on the right side of the page after you run a search, versus the built-in left side filters? Well, I'm glad you asked. Using those MyNCBI filters that we can build here allows you to choose and display the filters that you use most frequently without having to make them visible on the left side filter sidebar after you run a search. For example, I know a librarian who works at a children's hospital and uses the adolescent age filter a lot. By having that filter set up on the right side, she saves herself 7 clicks each day by setting it up on the left side. I actually counted the number of clicks it takes to show it and add it, et cetera, and it was 7. And you would have to do that on a daily basis because those left side filters, anything you add to the list, even if you're logged into MyNCBI, will disappear after 8 hours of inactivity, meaning basically once you leave for the day, return in the morning, any changes that you made on those left side filters will be gone and you'll have to bring everything back again. So, and then also using these right side filters eliminates the problem of forgetting to clear your filters because the NCBI filters do not remain applied from search to search as those website filters do. So I know I'm always forgetting to clear them. And you're allowed to have up to 15 active filters. So right now you see I've got filters for PubMed 9. You're allowed to have up to 15 filters for each of these different databases. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Manage Filters at the bottom of the filter portlet. I'm going to take a look inside. Now, one of the first things we see is the big blue Create Custom Filter button that really wants us to click on it. But we're just going to restrain ourselves for a little while. We'll come back to that. But first, let me draw your attention to, on the right side, it says Browse and Search for PubMed Filters, and you have 4 categories. It defaults to popular, and here, you can choose some popular ones or things that are of interest. So clinical trial, I like having English a lot. Free full text is one of my favorites, and I know many people like to have published in the last 5 years, and notice that these have all been added to the box of my filter list here. I'm going to click on Link Out. Now, I'm mostly going to let you investigate Link Out on your own, but I do want to show you one thing. Many of us hear the term link out and we immediately think about library holdings linked to PubMed, and that is definitely a thing, but link out means other things too. So I just want to show you what I mean by that, and you can look at this too. I think I have a PubMed ID, and it's really not important so much about which citation this is, but we're going to scroll past the abstract and the images here. We're going to scroll down to what they call the supplemental abstract data at the very bottom. I have mine closed right now. I'll show you where in MyNCBI in a little bit where you can set the default for these to be open all the time. I usually do have them open. But if you look, it says link out more resources. I'm going to expand that. When we were just in MyNCBI looking at that link out category, it's talking about this situation. You can make some choices about what you want to appear here. There's some full text sources. You can bring in medical information from Medline Plus, etc. There's also link out holdings. So link out means a couple of things, linking out to other information, also linking out to holdings. So we don't cover linking out to your holdings. I know many of you are interested in that. I'm going to give you a heads up about a link out class that's coming up in October, on October 18th of this year. You might want to pencil it into your calendar. It hasn't been announced yet. Sarah Helson at the National Library of Medicine is going to be teaching that. If you subscribe to the NLM Technical Bulletin, you will see that announced in the bulletin. So if that interests you, there's something coming up soon. So that's link out. You can look through here. The next category is my absolute favorite. There are a lot of choices here. I like to describe it as like going shopping, but everything is free. First thing here, age groups. Now this is where, for example, if you work with adolescents, you can choose, click that filter. I'm going to choose the 80 and over because I'm going to do a sample search in a little while. I'm going to use that particular filter. All of these ages here are the mesh terms. So when you apply one of these filters, whether it's aged, 80 plus, what have you, you're actually limiting to citations that have mesh terms, AKA Medline citations. Next in the list is clinical queries. Some of you may have taken the evidence-based features that Molly led last week, and she showed you this tool. And when you run a search, there's a category, there's 5 different choices, etiology, therapy, scope, broad, narrow. You don't actually have to come to this page. You can set up a filter. On the right side, everything in this list under clinical queries is exactly the same as what I just showed you, so you can use those. Entree date, citations entered in the last, what have you, 2 years, 3 months. Then I'll look at publication date. While I chose this published in the last 5 years, it shows up in popular as well, but there's other choices. Publication types are here, so these are also mesh terms, so you would be applying mesh filter basically. We've got the clinical trial phases here, comparative study. You could have that always there if that was something that you use on a regular basis. Subsets is the last choice I wanted to show you. If you took the building and refining class that I led a couple of weeks ago, I showed you the blue page that had, I think it's 14 subject subsets. I demonstrated the AIDS subset. So all those are here. You don't have to go to the blue page. There are other things on this list as well, including the journal subsets that I showed you 2 weeks ago. Clinical journals, the dental journals, nursing journals is here as well. You can always search for something that you're interested in, and sometimes I would suggest less is more, so just type in nursing if you're looking for nursing journals. The last one I want to show you, links, the last category. Now, most of these filters are for very specific users, and once again, I'm going to let you explore this. So links to cancer chromosomes, links to gene and nucleotides. Many of us, if not most of us, do not use those resources, but if you work with a population that does, you can help them connect more quickly to those. I am going to go back to my landing page. I'm going to use my search box here, create a search, and then I'm going to show you something else about the filters. I'm going to search for Parkinson's disease. Now, if you were in the building and refining a search a couple of weeks ago, I showed you how to find citations. You know, we want to use a drug to treat Parkinson's disease, and in this case, you would use the drug therapy subheading, and I'm also interested in a particular drug, and I want the therapeutic use of that drug. Therapeutic use of levodopa to treat Parkinson's disease. So, and you could use a Boolean operator here, but you don't have to. I'm going to run that search. So I got 5,963 results. You see I've got my right side filters here that are always there when you're logged in. We recommend remaining logged in all the time so you don't miss anything, you don't miss the use of your tools. So I'm going to go ahead and click filter with my 80 and over. My mother's 89 and she has Parkinson's disease, so this applies to her. We're down to 537 results. Notice that this particular filter, 80 and over, it's now highlighted or shaded in yellow. And there's also a plus sign to the right of it, which for, I would say, years, I never even noticed that little plus sign. And when you hover over it, it says, add this filter to your search term. And you're like, well, I thought I did just add this filter to my search term. So what that is trying to say is that when you apply one of these right side filters, they are not an official part of your search just yet. You actually have to jump through a couple of hoops if you want it to become an official part. What do I mean by official part? Let's just look at a couple of things. So in the general search box, I applied the filter, but the filter does not show in the search box. And if I scroll to search details, this is the bottom of the box. There's nothing about the filter there. And if I go to advanced to see my history, I see my search, but it does not indicate that this filter has been applied. Why would you want to make a filter an official part of your search? Well, maybe you want to save that search and receive an alert somewhere down the line, or even share the search. So in order to make it an official part of your search, you're going to click that yellow button. If you look at the search box on top, it now says and 80 and over, but I have to rerun the search for it to actually register in history. So I'm going to hit search again. Very little has changed, and I'm going to show you search details. Search details now includes on the right the 80 and over filter, and I'm going to go back into my history, and there's that filter. I could then, click on the number of that search, save it in my NCBI, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one filter, okay? So I'm going to use the back button. So now I've got that filtered 80 and over. Let's say I wanted to apply a second filter. We've got one filter applied, and I'm going to apply now a clinical trial. And it tells me I'm going to have 142. You can only apply one filter at a time unless you go through these same hoops of adding the filter to your search, hitting search again, and then it'll register in your search details and your history. I wanted to give you a chance to work on exercise 1 from the handout. It's pages 2 and 3. We'll come back and do the custom filters.
Please pause the recording to complete the exercise.
So I hope you got some filters added. Of course, you can always go back. Let's move on to custom filters. This is another powerful feature. Let me go back into My NCBI, upper right corner. I'm going to click on Manage Filters at the bottom of my filter portlet. So I already have some custom ones set, and you can see those here. Those have gears next to them. So let's say you wanted to add a filter so you could filter down to EPUB ahead of print. Citations that haven't been indexed yet. In this big query box, you can type, and now I have this on page 5 of the handout, a list of some custom filter queries that you can use. So the query for this is pub status ahead of print, all one word. So pub status ahead of print, all one word, not tagged. Test this query, 191,000. And then the moment you click in the Save Filter box, it puts in a name there, but you can change that name if you want, because you'll see in a moment when I do another example, it generally puts in very unhelpful names, but this one's okay. So I'm going to save that filter. Notice in my list on the left, it's in my list, but it hasn't been checked or activated yet. So that's sort of that question when we say how many active filters can you have? You can have 15 active, but in theory you could have 100 in this list, including a bunch of custom filters, and not all of them would be activated. So I'm going to click the box, the check mark there, now it's active. And let me show you another one. So if you were also in that evidence-based class last week that Molly led, she showed you this clinical queries section and systematic reviews, and she showed you the filter information that's at the bottom of the results there. It says filter information. So I just wanted to grab this whole thing. Even though this is also a left side filter, you can copy this entire search string or any search string that you find anywhere, I guess, and go back, click on custom filter, paste it into the search box. I've got that whole thing in there. Test the query. Yes, it works. And then it gives it a funny name, and I'll just change that. And once again, in my list of filters on the left, I need to check it. Roxanne asked a question, so I'm going to go into find a place to search and apply one of those custom filters. So I'm going to just search for cancer, because I can talk and type that. I'm going to look for one of my custom filters, which in this case I made the pub status ahead of print. I'm going to click it, and it gets applied. It is highlighted yellow, but you'll notice that there's no little round plus sign next to this custom filter. And that's because custom filters cannot become an official part of your search. They can't be saved in your history, etc. So, Roxanne, that's the answer to your question. Yes, there is no little button next to any of your custom filters. So I'm going to give you a chance to add some custom filters. Like I said, page 5 of your handout has a whole bunch of them. You can choose items that have abstracts. There are some where you can have, if you want, citations that have been retracted, and you can also specify a specific journal, and that's on that list of custom filters. So,
Please pause the recording to complete the exercise.
I am going to move on to the next thing I want to demonstrate to you, which is how to set up shared settings, and I'm going to talk about what that means. This time, I'm going to be clicking on NCBI site preferences. Earlier we looked at customize this page, the link next to it, NCBI site preferences. So actually, before I make my way to shared settings, which is in this list on the left under common preferences, I'll just talk about some of these other preferences where you can customize your account. Highlighting. I love highlighting. Do you love highlighting? You can choose a color, save. One of the things I love about highlighting is you run your search, say you search for the term cancer. Cancer will be highlighted in your search results. But in addition, because cancer is an entry term to the official mesh term neoplasms, neoplasms will also be highlighted, even if that wasn't the term you actually used. So I think that's pretty cool. It makes it easy to see results. Auto suggest, I like that. That's when you're typing in the search box and the list of suggestions appear. Some people don't like that. I like it because it keeps saves me from having to spell certain things. But remember, those are not actually suggestions per se. Those are searches that PubMed users from around the world have typed into that box. Nonetheless, it can be very handy, but if you just don't like that, you can turn that off. Links display, I'm going to click on it and it's still not going to explain anything. When you look at this page, it just doesn't really make any sense. If you were to go ahead and choose plain links, hit save. So let me show you two things here. Okay, I'm logged into PubMed. I'm in MESH, okay? I'm in MESH. I've looked up the term cancer. It doesn't matter what the term is. You see in my list here below neoplasms, I've got hyperlinks that are here because I chose that plain links option in my NCBI account. And what this allows you to do is I could just click on PubMed or PubMed major topic and run a search, run neoplasms major topic automatically without sending it to the search box and then clicking search PubMed. To be honest, I pretty much never use that feature, but without that feature turned on, let me just, oops, apparently I can't spell and talk, which I just proved. Okay, without those links turned on, you see I am not logged in. This is a different browser. There's neoplasms. This is most likely what your page looks like without those links. And they're, all those links are custom to whatever the term is, so they vary. They will only appear here if there are actual resources, about that particular term or for that term. Last thing I think, well, there's results settings if you want to set your defaults to 100, 200, etc. Shared settings, this is where I was going. You have 4 options here: document delivery, filter, etc., highlighting. So the 2 that I have chosen that I'm going to demonstrate to you through another account that I have. Right now I'm in my own personal account, but I have a separate account for this demo, is shared filter and shared highlighting. So I'm going to show you what that means. We also have a link, I think, that explains how to do this. Once I'm done, you can take a look at that. So what I have done here, let me go back. All right. So most of us work at an institution where we have a library web page, right? And most likely on that library web page somewhere is a link to pubmed.gov. Okay, so people come to your page. Now, I made this. This is not my library's web page. This is just a web page that I made. I have a giant link here to PubMed. So if you were to hover over that link, there's a little message that appears that says PubMed shared settings. And I know that's small, and even smaller than that is the URL that has now appeared in the lower left corner of the page, and it says, it's NCBI, PubMed, then it says MyNCBI share equals NTC. I'm just trying to show you that that link is a little different. So go ahead, if you're following along, go ahead and click on the PubMed hyperlink there. If you were already logged in, I would recommend logging out of your MyNCBI account because I want to demo this. I am not signed in to MyNCBI. Upper right corner, I'm proving I am not signed in. And I'm going to just search for flu. How did this happen? I'm not logged in, still not logged in. Yet I have highlighting is appearing and a list of right side filters. Like I said, it's magic. Clearly you have to either have access, have the ability to update your website. And if you do that, folks come to your library webpage, they click on PubMed, they start doing their search, and if at a certain point they decide, I really want to log into my own account and save these searches, etc., they can do that, and then all of their settings will preempt whatever this shared settings that you have set up. I want to show you here's an example, Duke University, their medical library, they've done this. So here on the left, Duke has a link to PubMed. I'm still not logged in. And I'll search for flu again. Now, they don't have highlighting turned on, but they do have a set of filters that they've chosen and put there. So the filters that you put on the shared settings are custom to you. We're going to talk about saving a search and creating an alert. I am now logged in. I'm using a different browser. I'm logged in. So I am just going to I'm going to run a search, pre-diabetes, A1C. Okay, I've got results. So you say you want to save the search, but you're going to have to actually click on the link that says Create Alert. Now, a little bit of history. It did used to say Save Search right here instead of Create Alert, but NLM found through user feedback that people, more often than not, were trying to create an alert versus saving a search, so they changed the link here. But in order to create an alert, you actually need to save your search. And if you save a search, you don't actually have to create an alert. So you have options. You can name your search whatever it is. Your search terms appear in the box here. And at this point, or even later, you can add terms to your search. You can do it at this point or from your saved search portlet within MyNCBI. So I'm going to add a term, carbohydrates. I'm going to test that. Yes, there's results. Do you want an email update for this search? So this is where the alerts, yes or no. It shows you the email it's going to. A lot of choices with frequency, even the day of the week. The format you want it to arrive, how many citations, do you want to send yourself a little personal message, and then you hit save. And let's look at collections. All right, that's one of the portlets here. So the first three collections, favorites, my bibliography, and other citations are there by default and cannot be removed. But all these others are collections that I've created for one reason or another. You can edit. There's that gear again, and you can make them public or private, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then I'm going to click on Manage Collections. Oh, actually, I was going to, I take that back. I'm going to use my back button. I'm going to run a search here for Zika virus. And I am going to choose a couple of these citations, and then you want to locate the Send To menu, which is next to the right side filters. Choose Collections. It's going to add 2 items. If you forget, as I have done on occasion, you would tend to choose 1 or 2 of them, but you completely forget to do that. It will, PubMed will add the first 1,000 citations by default. It will do that, and then if that's okay with you, you can even add more to that because you can add citations to a collection over time. It doesn't matter. There's no maximum number of citations that you can have within a collection, and there's no maximum number of collections that you can have. It's kind of an unlimited option there. So I'll go ahead and click that Send To menu again. Add to collections. Get a page. You want to append it to an existing collection. So here are all my collections. Or do you want to create a new collection? And here's where it gives this most unhelpful name, 2 items. So I'm just going to make it Zika virus and save. So I can either edit my collection right now by clicking here, or at some later date, go into MyNCBI, add, remove. I'm going to click on Edit Collection. Here you can do things like delete an item, click on it to view it, sort it differently, sort it however you want, more or less. Let's look at what public and private means. So private means clearly, it's just your collection, nobody else is going to see it. But I'm going to make this one public. So what does public mean? Public means, and what does it enable you to do? First, it enables you to share a collection. So let's say somebody, contacted the library, you're working on a search for them, and you've got, maybe 10, 100, 1,000 or more citations that you want to share with them. You could send that using the email option in the Send To menu, or you can make the collection, you can create a collection from the citations as we just did, change this to public and send them this URL. It says the public URL for your collection is, and I'm going to give you a moment in just a few minutes to do this, and I'm going to have you share your collection with, well, I'll say me, but just share it. So when you change your collection to public and share the URL, so you could send that URL to somebody, and this is what they would see. They would just see the citations. It would just open up in PubMed. The people will not have access to your account. They cannot add to the collection, delete it, edit, none of that. All they can do is see these items, and then they could say, yeah, number 2 looks good, please send that to me, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to give you just a moment to try making a collection public. You may have, I don't know if you've got collections already. If not, you'll start by doing a search. Exercise 6 on page 12, create a collection, and then the next exercise goes into make that public.
Please pause the recording to complete the exercise.
2 last things I want to show you. All right, so I'm going to go to my NCBI landing page. I wanted to remind you that in collections, one of the default collections that I pointed out before was favorites. How do things get to favorites? I'll show you. So here I have run a search in PubMed. I'm going to click on any citation. And on the right, there's a button that says Add to Favorites. Who has ever noticed that? So when it says Add to Favorites, and you click on that button, it now says Favorite. And this particular citation has now been added to that favorites collection. You can also use the down arrow and add it to other collections on the fly, multiple collections. I'm going to undo those. Or you can create a brand new collection on the fly here, or just manage all of your collections. So that's how that gets there. Last feature, recent activity. So what is recent activity? Well, you know that your daily history that you get to through advanced holds up to 100 searches at a time, and once you get to that 101st search, the oldest search drops off and kind of keeps going that way throughout the day. And then when you leave for the day and you come back the next day, assuming you're gone for at least 8 hours, all of your daily history will be gone. But when you're logged into MyNCBI, all of your recent activity for 6 months is retained in your recent activity portal, and that's in MyNCBI, on my portal page, recent activity. Some librarians have told us that they actually clear their daily history because they don't like people seeing how poor they are at searching. So, okay, I can understand, but I just want to point out that if you're actually trying to cover your tracks, you will have to go into recent activity and delete that very same search, because deleting something from daily history does not delete it from this recent activity that's held for 6 months, assuming you're logged in while you're searching. You can clear it. I do not recommend that. Has anybody ever used this recent activity feature? I've, on occasion, kind of just remembered one word from a search I did that I wanted to revisit. If you clear your recent activity, that safety net will be gone. You can turn it off, but once again, it would be gone. I'm going to click on See All Recent Activity. Yeah, Roxanne says, yes, it's great. And Isabel, yes, to find an older search for someone. Exactly. Knowing, it covers a lot of territory. Plus, you can search within your results here, within your history. It's the only place in PubMed where you can search within your results. You can also specify just the titles of the citation. So if you knew there was a specific word in the title, you could limit to titles. And it doesn't just show PubMed. It shows, I must have looked at help, the help book. I was in MESH. but I could have been in gene or nucleotide, and my searches from there would also be here in recent activity. You can display them however you want. You can choose items. You know, if at a certain point you're like, okay, I just want to get rid of this, you can copy things to a collection, save it to a search from here. So, very handy. And Mary says, I do because she changes computers. Yes, but I haven't tested to be sure all the searches stay. Mary, assuming you are logged in on whichever computers you're using, your searches should be saved. Yeah, it's based on more your account than the computer, so yeah.
Thanks for watching. This video was produced by the National Network of Libraries of Medicine. Select the circular channel icon to subscribe to our channel. Select a video thumbnail to watch another video from the channel.